What is it that the Apostle Paul says in Philippians 4? Rejoice in the Lord. Again, I say rejoice. And that's a verse that's important to me because it's a good verse to know when you're high and you're up. You can just rejoice. It's a very good verse to know when the things are not so well and you are reminded, rejoice in what you've got. So we have so much to be joyful for, right? We know the Lord. We got the Lord Jesus Christ. So we have so much to be joyful for, and we have so many blessings. So many blessings. Often we're looking around at what we don't have, and we forget how much God has given each and every one of us. So, the topic of this whole missions conference is joy. It's in every title and every opportunity to speak is joy, and today we'll be talking about the joy of missions. So I've been thinking a bit about joy, and want to think a bit about missions too. But if you have one of those, it's easy these days. You have a app on your iPhone or whatever. You can just plug in a word, and there's joy occurs 217 times in the New International Version of the Bible. Anyhow, 217 times. But the best definition I've heard of joy was given by Mrs. Mackey on, I think it was Friday night. And she went to Hebrews chapter 12, 2, and she reminded us that Jesus, he endured the cross. In other words, he went to the cross for us because of the joy that was before him. He could see you. He could see you, me. And he could see us in eternity. And that was the great joy of God. And he sufficient to endure the agony and the death of the cross. And that's our joy. That's our joy. The real joy that we have is the hope that we have before us in Jesus. Now, Steffi and I are really happy to be here. This is a special church. We don't get here that often, but this is a special church to Steffi and I. We believe it's our sending church, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But just in case everybody didn't see Stephanie, I'm proud of her. You stand up one more time. They might have been looking at me. And we want to reminisce a little bit because of the importance of this church and what it's done for us. In fact, we're going to talk a little about, I'm not the Apostle Paul, and you're not my offspring. In fact, this church is more of our father, spiritual father, and we may be your offspring, but this church, you are our joy, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. We're going to go back in time, and Clayton and Jean will remember some of it, and Elton and his wife are here, so we'll touch a bit on that as well. But I also want to talk about adventure. We're going to a couple of themes here. Adventure. The adventure of being on mission with God. The adventure of being on mission with God. And I trust that you have put that high in your priority to be on mission with God. And I want to remind us of the faithfulness of God. Okay? It all started right about over there. That's the first memory I have in this church. I was sitting right over there. My wife and I, a little bit back, things changed in our lives while we were working in Australia, living in Australia. I was a pastor's son, for those of you who don't know. But at that time in my life, I was pretty interested in adventure, and I was pretty interested in success. And my friend Jesus, the way I thought of in those terms, it kind of got beside the point. But anyway, when I was in Australia, and a well-known evangelist came to Australia, and you know how God works in people's lives. Things, although they were really great, they weren't always that great. And I started thinking about this, and I realized that I had kind of left what I'd always considered my best friend behind, because if you have a friend, you communicate with that friend, right? And it dawned on me, I hadn't been communicating with Jesus at all, and a pastor reminded me of that. And I realized I had to get my life changed around, and anyway, I'd make a long story short. We had an evangelist there, and I knew what I needed to do. I kind of grew up in a Pentecostal tradition, and so when he made an altar call, I and Steffi were the first one to the altar, and we tried, and I committed our lives to Christ, and I wanted to say to Jesus, I'll always put you first. I wish I could stand up here in front. I've always put him first. We've tried, but there are times I'm afraid that maybe I've slipped at some times, but God has been faithful. He's always faithful. Anyway, we left Australia, and we lived here. We'd lived here already 12 years, right, Stephanie? Yeah, we'd been in Walnut Creek 12 years. Didn't know this church. Went to New Mexico, got in a really small little Baptist church where Pastor Mackey got, I think from this morning, he got mentored by another pastor. Well, we were in a small Baptist church, and that pastor and his wife were just great evangelists and pastors, and they could spend a lot of time on Steffi and I and mentoring us in the Word of God and preparing us for ministry. And then my company brought me back to California, and I wanted so badly to go into missions and to go into ministry. And I said, God, if that company calls me back to headquarters, I'm going to go because that's the way it works. And anyway, we came back, and they did, and I came back to work in San Francisco, and we had friends who had kids here in this school. And so we decided we'd put our kids, Mark and Nicole. We have 2 children, Mark and Nicole. That time they were, I don't know, kindergarten, 3rd grade? 4th and 1st. Okay, so I was out here by myself for a while, and I came to check out the school, and sitting in that office over there, I don't think things have changed that much. And guess who walks in, for you that can remember? Pastor Younger, Tom Younger. Well, Younger, he planted 28 churches, I think, in his life. And he spots me, and he starts the conversation. And, what are you doing here? And he says, next thing, what do you got in mind for church? And so I said, nothing really yet. And he says, well, think about us. Give us a chance. So I came, and that was first morning right over there. God just washed me. We'd been in a small church. We did everything from janitorial work to preaching. And all of a sudden, I was in a big church. And I told Younger, I said, I said, Steph and I are worn out. We've been 5 years in this little church, and we just want to sit and soak up. He says, sit and soak up. He says, get ready. He says, put you to work. Well, that didn't last very long. See that guy over there, Clayton Ross? Right there. First thing he's got me teaching, come on, he says, how about giving us a Sunday school lesson here some morning? You don't remember this, Clayton, but I remember it. I thought about it this morning. So, see, Clayton got us into his Sunday school class, and he had me teach a lesson, Exciting. I can still remember it was in Galatians 5:20. I die, but nevertheless I live, because it's Christ that lives in me. And you probably don't remember that, Clayton, but that was it. And the next thing, somebody has us, they have us, and you again, Rosses were there, and you have us down at Leatherby's or Letterby's. It's going out of business, the ice cream parlor. Leatherby's, right. You have us down at Leatherby's, see? See, out of your working? Phew, you had Steffi and I tied in right away. We didn't get that 6-month rest that we were looking for. But that just the encouragement of this church and how it goes. We were only here for 18 months. We were here for 18 months only. And we talked to people, and it all surprised me. It seems like we're here for a long time in this church. But it was so important part of it. God used this church to put Steffi and I into ministry. It was here where we made the decision to go into ministry. We made that big step, I've been looking for a brick to fall on my head, say, God, I want to go into ministry, Where's this brick to fall on me to get me going? And Steffi was praying about it, and she had been to a conference to a missionary, and she came back, and I can still remember where I was sitting in my house, and I heard her get out of the cab from the airport, and I knew. She walked in, she says, it's time for us to go. And so we told Tom we were going to go off to, and here I was a little bit of a chicken. We went to seminary. I heard one of the best speakers I've heard in a long time this morning, and with Pastor Mackey, And but anyway, he went right into ministry, had a great mentor, but we went to seminary, and I kind of wonder why sometimes I was still a bit afraid. School was easy for Steffi and I. We had a lot of it, and so we went off to seminary. But you know what? This church also was used to put us in the right seminary, because I was praying, where am I going to go to seminary? I don't know anything about seminary. And again, Younger has this program. He invites us, and my son and I, it was a father-son type of deal, and he was a really good friend with the ex-president of Denver Seminary. I didn't know anything about it. I never heard of Denver Seminary before in my life. And this ex-president was speaking. He was supposed to speak, and I walked in, and I could just tell there was something God was going to tell me that day. And I told Mark, I said, Mark, we've got to listen here. And sure enough, this guy gets up and talks, and he met my need. He met those last few little questions and doubts in my mind if I was supposed to go into the ministry. And so that's what this church has meant to us. God has been so very faithful. I want to stop just for a moment and back up how much I've enjoyed this conference. I'm glad to hear from you, Cal, that we've been a blessing to you. But I'll guarantee you, Steffi and I have been blessed as well. And we've been blessed by this gentleman and his family, particularly. He doesn't know this, but by him speaking this morning, we both have an engineering background. I heard him say that. And I heard a little bit of that he's probably has some agriculture farming background too, because he's talked a little bit about farming, and that's kind of my background. My dad was a pastor of small churches, and so he made a living by farming, so I kind of grew up on farm. And of course, my education background is in engineering. Many of you know that. So we have something in common. And I appreciate some other things I've learned too. Steph and I work what we call cross-cultural ministry. One of the things that's been so interesting to us and what really propelled us into missions was the idea of unreached people groups. Realizing there are so many people that have never even heard of the gospel. And the country of Mali is one of those, and I'll tell you a bit more how we got into there. But very few people in Mali had heard of the gospel. But Pastor Mackey tells me less than 2% of the deaf people in this country, if I heard that right, less than 2% have heard the gospel. Right here in our own country, we have a whole group of people that we need to reach cross-culturally, and they haven't heard the gospel. We have so much work to do right here. And I appreciate, another thing I appreciate so much from hearing about from what Pastor Mackey has said, deaf people, they have a sense of sin and a need for forgiveness. I've heard this many times, almost every time Pastor Mackey's talked, and from the other people. They have a sense of sin, which is rather important if you need Jesus Christ, right? We have a tribe of people in all of West Africa. It's the largest nomadic tribe in the world. It's called the Fulani. And the Fulani people are very hard to reach for the gospel because they do not believe that they have any sin. They cannot believe that they sin. So I hear this all the time from this group of people. They understand that they have sin in their life, and Jesus Christ can forgive them and on to heaven. And I heard you guys missed it. You should have been there and heard Ken's testimony. Joyful. And then I'm going to get that name wrong. Ivro, excuse me. And I believe he's from Nigeria, just a country really close to Mali. And he wants to go to the mission field. And I'm telling you, I mentioned that the other night, we still have a place for him in Mali because we have a couple of deaf schools in the capital city of Bamako. In fact, Steffi and I helped a young boy attend that school and get educated, but I know they have no Christian leadership in that school whatsoever. So there's opportunity. So encourage that young man. Let's keep him encouraged to go where God wants to use him. Well, faithfulness in Mali. I should tell you one story. Did I ever tell you this story, how we ever got to Mali? How did our family ever get to Mali? See, I just wear out these people. That's a great team. How I got to Mali? Pardon? Buy gold. You know what? The first time I was in Mali, he's right. We were developing a gold mine in Mali, yeah. But, and I found very few people knew about Mali, and I'm one of these type of people. I like to be where nobody else is. I'm a frontier type of guy. I want to be on the front lines. I like adventure. Adventure was part of me. I have to have adventure. But I'm also sometimes, God works with me. I'm a little bit arrogant at times. And we were in seminary, and it was the third day we were in seminary. And we walked into the lunchroom, and all the missionaries had set up their little tables, to get all these guys to come to their mission. And we walked, and there was one guy right in the middle, and he set up really well. You had to step over him to get in that lunchroom. And we started talking a little bit, and I kind of mentioned to Steffi. I said, Steffi, I bet he never even heard of Mali. And so he's talking. I said, yeah. I said, you know anything about Mali? He says, yeah. He said, I was a missionary there for 28 years. Oh. And then I found out he was an old miner like I was. And you know what? I wish I could tell more stories, but how God, just from the very beginning, nothing miraculous about it, but how God was so faithful with Steffi and I, how he led us along. And he let us know that he's just saying, John and Steffi, you just keep going where you're going. Just keep doing it. I'm here. I'm here beside you. God is being faithful. Faithful. And he's given me adventure. He's giving me the desire of my heart. The Bible tells you in Psalm 37, I think verse 4, commit your way to the Lord and he'll give you the desire of your heart. And so many kids, so many young people, they're also worried about, I got to do this, because this is what if I commit myself to God, he might make me wear a bun and go to Africa. No. See, how are we saved? Ephesians 2, 8, and 9 tells you we are saved by grace. We know that. We are saved by grace. I think everybody knows that here. If you don't, you talk to Pastor. Talk to Pastor Mackey. But we all forget about verse 10. We are God's creation. Designed for what? Good works. Yeah, Jesus equals salvation plus good works. And it's not good works equals something. No. He designed us for good works. He designed you. He knows what you're going to like. So forget about, just commit yourself to God. Get on his mission. God, if you commit yourself to God, if you say, God, I'm prepared, he will work with you starting tomorrow. But he's got to work with a willing person. So just commit yourself to God, and then he'll start working, and he'll give you all kinds of opportunities. And I'll guarantee you, he'll give you the desire of your heart. There's nothing in God that wants to make you unhappy. He knows what will make you happy. I searched for adventure for 30-some years. I killed myself a couple times almost. I fell 125 feet trying to be adventurous. I found myself floating out off the Great Barrier Reef of Australia with nothing but a snorkel and hardly land in sight because I got caught in a tide, trying to be adventurous. Oh, it was fun. But one day I realized, I heard one of my father's sermon, and I'd given up exactly what he said. He had been talking about committing yourself to the Lord for adventure. And I'd put all that aside, and all of a sudden, I realized the adventure I was seeking was going to be in Jesus Christ. And I haven't regretted one day. As you know, I worked as an engineer. Steffi, she went to law school, and we lived in Walnut Creek, and I think that's one of the nicest places to live. And we had things kind of nice. And in fact, I'll tell you the way I got to seminary was a private jet. I knew I was flying from San Francisco someplace on business, and I told our pilot, I want to drop off in Denver for a few hours. I said, would you land there? And I took off my suit, and I put on jeans and boots, and I went down to the seminary to check it out. Incognito, so I didn't know what, and I had gray hair by that time already. But where I'm trying to go here is that, maybe I was getting some small pieces of what I thought I really wanted, but I'm going to tell you something today. If I had not given my life to Christ and trusted him with it, I would hate to be where I am. I'm 67 years old. I would not have lived. I would have not have lived. My life has been so enriched just on the pure adventure side by following Jesus where he took me. Okay, he used what he knows that I like to be where other people aren't. He knows I like to push the frontier, so he said, "Okay, go to Mali. You have a lot of frontier to push there." And I think his real faithfulness, he's kept Steffi alive. It's been, Mali's a difficult place. It's not been all easy. But, God has been so faithful. And I'll tell you a little story, do you remember Nikki and Mark? They were cute kids, right? They're all big now, growing up. But we were off to Africa the first time. Now, we made this trip many, many times as a family. But the first trip, Clayton, okay, and we're in the Chicago airport. And, everybody's excited. We're going to Mali as missionaries. We're going to serve Jesus. The kids, kids at that age, boy, they are trusting in the Lord, right? And, of course, they're probably going through their mind, can we trust this God, What is this big adventure all about that Dad's all excited about? And, well, we're in the Chicago airport, and our Steffi's mother has given us a really nice video camera, because we should take videos and send them back to her, right? And she's losing her daughter, she's losing her grandkids. And anyway, we're in the Chicago airport, and off we go to get on the airplane, and we all get set down, and Nikki says, "Where's the video camera?" So you got the video camera. Who's got the video camera? Nobody has the video camera. Oh, no, that's how a good way to start the trip. We lose our video camera. And not Nikki and I says, well, we got to, I know where it was. It was way back there, way on the other side of immigration. And I ran, and you still talk to pilots in those days. I said, we forgot our video camera. We're going to go. He said, well, you don't have much time. And so we start running, and everybody was cheering, and we run, and Nikki and we run, and it's way where you get off from cars. And we go to and there where we were sitting, underneath the seat, is that video camera. There was a couple, an older couple, had seen that, and they sat on it, and they're watching that video camera, and we had to pretty much prove that it was our video camera before they gave it to us. But see how God works with you, right? Right, those kids, they needed that. The kids needed to know that God was faithful, and God showed off right away. He was going to be faithful to us. God is faithful. He's a faithful God. Now for you guys, do you guys like snakes? Missionaries always do themselves in because they talk about all this. Who wants to go where there's snakes? But God is faithful. Well, there's a lot of snakes where Steffi and I live. I'll tell you that. There's a lot of them, and they're always on our doors, But when we first got to Mali, I didn't know so much about snakes. And I remember we'd come back from Bamako. We'd come back from Bamako with groceries, and it was nighttime, and we were unloading the car, going in and out of the door. And anyway, I was going in and out of the door, and I heard this shh. I thought, wow, it must be, where's water running or something like that? Stepping out of the house, stepping back of the house. So I finally get flat, look around, and you know what there was? Right where I've been stepping over with my bare feet? A viper. Now, it could have been a real quick ending to my missionary career, right? But, yeah, viper, very bad snake. Very bad snake. But he just been lying there hissing at me, and God didn't let him bite me. And my foot must have missed him by inches, barefoot. See, God was trying to show us, John, Stephanie, I'm with you. I'm with you. Just keep on going. It's going to maybe get tough. But I'm with you. I'm faithful. And I could go on and on with these stories of faithfulness. God is so faithful. So, not a ceremony really, just thank you for your faithfulness. 20 years almost. 20 years this church has been behind us. 20 years ago, we stood right down here, and people came up and commissioned us for the mission field. Clayton's hand was on this shoulder. This church is our sending church. We love you. 20 years ago, and we thank you for it, and we hope through this conference we've been able to show you a little bit about what we've been able to accomplish together in Jesus Christ. My dad died a couple years ago, And he was bedridden before he died, and he was a proud man, and he was a hard-working man. He was German. He might have had some Finnish in him from what I heard from Pastor Mackey, but and I got worried because it was hard. I think he had some strokes. He changed. Now I was almost worried about his relationship with God. We always like to live things over with our parents, wouldn't we? But I asked him one day. I said, "Dad," I says, I forget how I asked him. I says, has God been faithful to you over these years?" And he was laying in bed, and he wasn't at that time. There was not, unlike my mother, who was just bubbling joy to the moment she died. Daddy didn't show that so much. And he turned to me and says, "Oh, John, God has always been faithful. Always been faithful." And you have to understand that things are, to have joy and to know God's faithfulness, you have to have some trials and sorrows and tribulations, right? Like a lot of you lost probably a lot of your money in the market that dropped. Well, Steffi and I lost a lot of our money in the market that dropped. I used to be able to sit in the mission field and say, "Well, if this doesn't work out, I got plenty to go fall back on." And, well, that's not true anymore. I'd give them to professionals, and those professionals really did well. I was in the mission field making lots of money, actually, and that's why God blessed us, and we were able to take care of our support, and that's why some of the things we could do, because we had churches like you, and we could we could really help out. And then all of a sudden, we didn't really have all that. And you know what? I was a little bit, at first, I said, well, God's always faithful. He'll just rebuild the count. But you know what? He didn't really build the count. And then then maybe I went through a little bit. I could have get a little bit mad, maybe. Hey, God, I did my part. I didn't have time to worry about my finances. That was your part. But it really wasn't, was it? But we're doing very well. And I'm glad it did happen, because I needed to depend on God more. Now I can really more depend on God and be a bit more, like Pastor Younger said once up here. He says, never traffic in unlived truth. It's kind of hard to stay up here and if everything is going just right for you, tell everybody else, just don't worry, God's going to take care of it. Well, God has been faithful to Steffi and I, and if I get worried about it sometimes, you know what Steffi's told me? She says, "John, when has God never provided for you and me?" And boy, is she ever true, And we have everything we ever needed, and life is great. Time is up. And so I thank you. Thank you for your time this morning. Encourage you. Mission, well, yeah, ours is cross-cultural mission, but your mission is this. It's God's mission. It's God's mission. He's the one that's got it. He's the one that's got working with us. Find out what his mission is. He'll show you what part you're to play, what work he created for you, young man, before you were ever born. And you can live full life, exciting, adventurous, as much as you want. God will meet your need. Thank you so much for your attention. God bless each and every one of you.